You are sitting on your porch at 7 in the morning, the same way you have every single day for the past 11 years, watching the street wake up around you while nobody bothers to look your way. Your name is Thaddeus Kirby, and you are 78 years old. The neighbors on Larkspur Lane have a name for you too, though they don't know you can hear it through your screen door when they walk past with their strollers and their dogs. They call you the quiet old man on the porch, nothing more. Just a fixture like the mailbox or the fire hydrant on the corner, something that's always been there, never questioned, never really seen. You sip your coffee slowly, the same chipped blue mug you've used since your wife, Odessa, passed 6 years ago. The porch creaks beneath your rocking chair, a sound so familiar it barely registers anymore. Across the street, a young mother wrestles a stroller down her front steps. And 2 doors down, a teenager backs his car out too fast, nearly clipping your mailbox for the 3rd time this month. Nobody waves. Nobody nods. You've become part of the scenery. Before I go further into what happens next, and trust me, this story has a turn you won't see coming. If stories like this one mattered to you, stories about people who are overlooked but never truly small, please hit subscribe right now, because what Thaddeus does next on that porch is going to change everything about how you see the quiet people in your own life. You finish your coffee and watch as Priya Wentworth, the young widow who moved in 3 houses down last spring, struggles to carry 2 overflowing grocery bags along, with a fussy toddler on her hip. Her car is parked crookedly in the driveway, and you can see the exhaustion etched into her face even from this distance. You think about offering to help. You always think about it. But the last time you tried, a neighbor eyed you suspiciously, like an old man wanting to help a young mother with something sinister, rather than simply human decency. So now you just watch and you stay quiet. The same way you've learned to stay quiet about most things since Odessa died. That's the thing people don't understand about being 78 and alone. It's not that you have nothing to offer. It's that the world stopped asking. You spent 43 years as an actuary for a modest insurance firm downtown, the kind of unglamorous job that taught you to read numbers, the way other men read faces, patterns, risks, the quiet mathematics of human lives. You were good at it. Better than good, if you're being honest with yourself, though modesty was something Odessa always said was your worst habit disguised as a virtue. When you retired at 65, you and Odessa had modest savings, a paid-off house, and decades of careful, unglamorous investing that neither of your 2 children ever seemed particularly interested in understanding. Your son Weston lives 4 states away and calls on major holidays, always rushed, always distracted by something more urgent than his father's voice. Your daughter Marguerite lives closer in the next county over, but her visits have thinned to twice a year, usually around obligations rather than desire. You don't blame them, not really. Grief does strange things to families. When Odessa died, something in the family's center of gravity shifted, and you became the reminder of a loss nobody wanted to sit with for too long. It was easier for everyone if you simply became the quiet old man on the porch. Present, harmless, and easy to forget. But here's what nobody on Larkspur Lane knows about you. Those 43 years of careful actuarial work, combined with Odessa's frugal nature and your own disciplined investing, left you with considerably more than your modest house and modest habits would suggest. You have never told a soul the actual number. Not your children, not your neighbors, not even your late brother before he passed. You learned long ago that money changes how people look at you, and you'd rather be underestimated than watched, with the particular hunger some people reserve for the wealthy. So you've spent the last several years doing something quietly, something that has become the truest purpose left in your life. You've been helping your street, anonymously, carefully, without a single soul knowing it's you. It started small, almost by accident. 3 years ago, you noticed that the Petrosian family 2 houses down had stopped putting up Christmas lights, something they'd done cheerfully every year since they moved in. You later learned, through overheard porch conversations, that weren't meant for your ears but carried on the wind anyway, that Mr. Petrosian had lost his job at the auto plant and the family was quietly drowning in medical bills for their youngest daughter's asthma treatments. You didn't know them well. A wave here, a nod there, but you couldn't stop thinking about that dark house while every other house on the street glowed with lights. So you did something that felt, at the time, almost illicit in its simplicity. You mailed them an envelope with cash inside. No note, no name. Nothing traceable. Timed to arrive right before the holidays. You told yourself it was a one-time thing, a small gesture that wouldn't matter much in the grand scheme of anyone's life. But then you saw the lights go back up that December, and something in your chest loosened for the first time since Odessa's funeral. You started paying closer attention after that, not in a way that felt invasive. You were far too private a man for that, but in the way a careful accountant notices patterns in a ledger. You noticed when the Hendrick boys' basketball shoes had holes in them for 2 months, straight before a new pair mysteriously appeared. You noticed when old Mrs. Castellanos' roof started leaking and a anonymous community fund covered the repair. You noticed when Priya Wentworth's car, the one with the crooked parking and the overflowing grocery bags, nearly got repossessed last winter before the debt mysteriously vanished from her account. All of it quietly funded through a private trust you set up with your lawyer, structured so carefully that even the recipient's own bank records showed no clear source. You made sure of that. You didn't want gratitude. You didn't want to be seen. You simply wanted, in whatever quiet way was left to you, to matter to the people around you, even if they never knew it was you. This brings you to today, sitting on your porch, watching Priya struggle with her groceries and her toddler, and feeling that same old ache of wanting to help without knowing how to offer it without suspicion. What you don't know yet, what you couldn't possibly know, sitting there with your chipped blue coffee mug, is that today is the day everything about your quiet, invisible life is about to change. It starts with a knock, not on your door, but 2 houses down, where a woman in a gray blazer is standing on Priya Wentworth's porch, a leather folder clutched against her chest. You watch, curious despite yourself, as Priya answers the door, her expression shifting from confusion to something like alarm. You can't hear the conversation from your porch, but you can read body language, the way you once read actuarial tables. And what you're reading now is trouble. Priya's shoulders curl inward. Her hand goes to her mouth. The woman in the blazer hands her a folder and gestures toward a car parked at the curb. Official looking, with a logo you don't recognize. 20 minutes later, your phone rings. It's Doreen Falkenrath, your neighbor from directly across the street. A woman who has lived on Larkspur Lane even longer than you have and who, despite the general neighborhood habit of ignoring you, has always shown you a small measure of kindness. "Thaddeus," she says, breathless. "Have you heard? They're saying someone's been investigating the anonymous donations, some kind of financial crimes unit, looking into suspicious untraceable payments into several accounts on the street. They think it might be some kind of scam or money laundering operation, targeting vulnerable families." Your stomach drops. "They talked to Priya just now," Doreen continues. "And I heard they're planning to talk to half the street. People are scared, Thaddeus. They think someone dangerous has been watching all of us, sending money to manipulate us somehow." You sit in stunned silence, gripping the phone, feeling the ground shift beneath 11 years of careful, quiet anonymity. The very thing you built to help your neighbors, the secret kindness that gave your remaining years purpose, is now being twisted into something sinister. Something that has your neighbors, the people you've spent years quietly protecting, suddenly afraid. Over the next several days, you watch your street transform in ways you never anticipated. Fear does strange things to a community that has spent years comfortably ignoring each other. Suddenly, neighbors who never spoke are gathering on porches, speculating, theorizing, exchanging paranoid glances at anyone slightly unfamiliar. You hear whispers, actual whispers, carried on the porch wind, the same way the Petrosian family's troubles once reached you, speculating about who among them might be the suspicious donor. Someone suggests it might be connected to organized crime. Someone else insists it must be some kind of elaborate scam, building trust before eventually asking for something in return. Nobody suggests it might be you. Of course they don't. You are the quiet old man on the porch, invisible, harmless, beneath consideration. The financial crimes investigator and a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Vesper Aldridge begins making her way down the street, interviewing residents one by one. You watch her approach each house with the same measured, professional demeanor. Watch the fear on your neighbors' faces as they try to make sense of money that arrived without explanation. Kindness they never questioned until someone told them to be afraid of it. When she finally reaches your porch on the 4th day, your heart is pounding so hard you're certain she can hear it. "Mr. Kirby?" she says, consulting a small notepad. "I'm following up with residents on Larkspur Lane about some unusual financial activity. I understand you've lived here longer than most. Have you noticed anything unusual? Any strangers, any suspicious activity? You sit very still, your chipped blue mug cooling in your hands, and you feel the full weight of the choice in front of you. You could stay silent. You could let this investigation continue. Let your neighbors live in fear a little longer. Let the truth remain buried the way you'd always intended it to be. 43 years of careful, private discipline had taught you the value of staying quiet, of never drawing attention. But you think of Priya's frightened face on her porch. You think of the Petrosian family's Christmas lights, and the Hendrick boys' new shoes, and old Mrs. Castellano's roof. You think of everything you built quietly, out of love for a street that never noticed you, and you realize that your silence, the very silence that has defined your entire existence since Odessa's death, is now causing the very people you tried to help to suffer. Actually, you say slowly, setting down your mug, there's something you should know. What follows is the hardest conversation you've had in 11 years. You tell investigator Aldridge everything. The trust you established, the anonymous donations, the careful legal structuring designed specifically to avoid detection, because you never wanted recognition, only impact. You show her the paperwork from your lawyer, the trust documents, years of careful, meticulous record-keeping that proves every dollar was a gift, freely given, with no strings, no scheme, no manipulation. Aldridge listens without interrupting, her expression shifting slowly from professional skepticism to something more complicated, surprise, and beneath that, something that looks almost like genuine emotion. You've been doing this for 3 years? She asks finally. Alone? With no recognition at all? I didn't want recognition, you say, and your voice catches slightly, surprising you. I want it to matter. There's a difference. She closes her notepad slowly. Mr. Kirby, I need to verify all of this, obviously. But if what you're telling me is true, you haven't committed any crime. You've done something. She pauses, searching for words. Something most people would find hard to believe. The investigation clears you within the week. The paperwork verifying every claim you made. But word travels fast on a street that spent days steeped in fear and speculation. And by the time the truth comes out, it doesn't stay contained to whispered porch conversations. Priya Wentworth is the first to knock on your door, 3 days after the investigation officially closes. She stands on your porch, the same porch you've occupied invisibly for 11 years, holding her toddler on her hip, tears streaming down her face. It was you, she says, her voice breaking. The car payment, the daycare deposit last spring, all of it. It was you the whole time. You don't deny it. There's no point anymore, and something in you, something that has been quietly starved for years, doesn't want to deny it either. I didn't know how else to help, you say simply. I didn't think anyone would want an old man interfering directly. So I found another way. She sets her son down gently and, before you can protest, wraps her arms around you in an embrace so sudden and fierce it nearly knocks the wind out of you. You saved us, she whispers into your shoulder. More than once. And I never even said thank you because I never knew who to thank. Over the following days, more neighbors come. The Petrosian family, tears in their eyes, finally understanding where 3 years of anonymous Christmas kindness truly came from. The Hendrick family, whose son now wears the new shoes you quietly provided 2 years ago, standing awkwardly on your porch, unsure how to properly thank a man they'd walked past 1,000 times without truly seeing. Old Mrs. Castellano, moving slowly with her own cane now, gripping your hand and saying nothing at all, because some gratitude runs too deep for words. Doreen Falkenrath organizes something you never asked for and would have refused if given the choice. A small street gathering, right there on Larkspur Lane, folding tables set up between houses. Neighbors who once walked past each other now standing together, sharing food, sharing stories finally seeing each other the way a real community should. You sit in your usual rocking chair, brought out to the center of the gathering against your protests. And for the first time in 6 years since Odessa passed, you don't feel like the quiet old man on the porch. You feel like part of something again. Your daughter, Marguerite, calls that evening, her voice thick with emotion after hearing the story, secondhand from a family friend who still lives on the old street. Dad, why didn't you tell us? She asks, and you can hear genuine hurt beneath the question. All these years and we had no idea. We could have, I don't know, we could have understood you better. We could have been there more. You think carefully before answering. The same careful deliberation you once applied to actuarial risk. I think, you say slowly. I was afraid that if you knew what I had, you'd see the money before you saw me. I wanted to matter for who I was, not what I could give. There's a long silence on the line, and then Marguerite says something that undoes. Something tight in your chest that's been wound since Odessa's funeral. Dad, you've always mattered. We just forgot to show you that. I'm sorry it took a stranger's investigation to remind all of us. Your son Weston calls 2 days later, less eloquent but no less sincere, promising visits that feel, for the first time in years, like they might actually happen. 6 months later, you are still sitting on your porch most mornings, the same chipped blue mug in your hands, but everything else has changed. Priya stops by most Tuesdays with her son, who has taken to calling you Grandpa Thad with the easy affection only children offer freely. The Petrosian family invites you to their daughter's birthday party, where you sit at the head table like an honored guest rather than an invisible fixture. The street gathering became a monthly tradition, something Doreen now organizes with genuine enthusiasm, turning Larkspur Lane into something it hadn't been in years, an actual community, rather than a collection of strangers sharing a zip code. You still fund the trust, though openly now, with a small committee of neighbors helping identify who might need help each season. It's different this way, less private, less controlled, but somehow more meaningful. Because now the giving is shared, the impact witnessed, the connection real rather than hidden. You think of Odessa often, sitting on this porch, and you believe, in the quiet way faith settles into a person late in life, that she would be proud of what her frugal habits and your careful discipline ultimately became, not just financial security, but genuine lasting connection to a community that finally learned to see you. You are 78 years old, and for the first time in longer than you can remember, you no longer feel like the quiet old man on the porch, forgotten and overlooked. You feel like exactly what you always were, even when no one noticed. A man who never stopped believing that quiet kindness, given without expectation of recognition, is still the loudest form of love there is. You've learned that being overlooked was never the same as being unimportant. It just meant the world hadn't looked closely enough yet.